Welcome to the last presentation of our 2024 OLLI at the U lecture series. The Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Minnesota is a vibrant learning community for people aged 50 plus. Part of the College of Continuing and Professional Studies, OLLI belongs to a national network of Osher Lifelong Learning Institutes supported by the Bernard Osher Foundation. I would like to acknowledge and say thank you to our sponsors today, AARP of Minnesota and the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. We acknowledge that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities is built within the traditional homelands of the Dakota people. It's important to acknowledge the peoples on whose land we live, learn, and work as we seek to improve and strengthen our relations with our tribal nations. Today's topic is University of Minnesota Libraries, the front line of providing access to information to the campus, the community, and the world. Our guest speaker today is Professor Lisa German. Lisa German is a McKnight Presidential Professor and University Librarian and Dean of Libraries, providing leadership for 11 libraries with historically rich collections and nationally recognized programs in technology development, information literacy, and research services. Professor German, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Laura, and welcome everyone to this webinar. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As Laura said, I have the privilege of being the University Librarian and Dean of Libraries here at Minnesota. I hope we can have a really robust question and answer session at the end. One question I have right at the get-go, and if you can put it in the Q&A, I believe, what's your favorite library?
Wilson Anderson Horticultural Library, Walter, Libby Online.
Oh, yes, I love Libby too.
The Law Library, Anderson, downtown Minneapolis, George Latimer, St. Paul Public Libraries. One person says Wilson because I work here. New York City Library, Fifth Avenue, Golden Valley, Detroit Main Library, Bodleian Oxford University, Harris County Public Library in Houston, Roseville, all across the board.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, and Ashley, welcome. She happens to be downstairs right now, I think. So I was saying to Laura earlier, one of the libraries that I've been in and I just was awestruck was the library at Trinity College in Dublin, where I had the great fortune to be able to see the Book of Kells. And I just mentioned that because every library, whether it's Harris County in Houston, which I've been to as well, or it's the University of Minnesota, or any of these libraries, there's, if you're like me and you're a library lover, then there's so many favorite libraries. And I am so glad that you all are library users. And I hope you all have great experiences at the libraries that you visit. And I'm betting you do, because our library staff, and when I say our library staff, I mean library writ large, focus on our users, on our patrons, on our clientele. And today I'm going to share, a bit about myself, a lot about our world-class library, and then about the environment in which libraries are living. So I'm going to leave it. I'm I'm not going to leave it here because I don't want to look at me this long. So I'm going to just go to the next slide, but I'm going to do this. I want to tell you a little bit about my story. When I went to college, my dad told me, college isn't a trade school, study what you want. I wonder how many parents would tell their children that today. And I don't believe, if I'm being totally honest, I told that to my daughters. I went to college at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. I was a third generation Illinois grad on one side of my family and a first gen student on the other. I studied history because I loved it. I think liberal arts are essential. And I loved learning about the past. And I truly believe you need to learn about the past in order to make good decisions in the present and in the future. After college, I started working in a bank. And I had 3 jobs before I started working in libraries that I think have prepared me well, especially for being a dean. The first one was when I was in college, I worked at the Y Used bookstore on campus, where you could just smell the books as soon as you walked in the door. And if any of you have gone to the University of Illinois, you may have seen or gone to that bookstore. The second job I had that I think helped prepare me for this job was working as a waitress in Wisconsin at a lodge, because that's when you really learn about customer service and learn about people. I often think that folks who have been wait staff have a real leg up when it comes to careers because you learn so much. And finally, the last thing I would say is when I worked in a bank, my first job was balancing people's checkbooks. And that was I had to use all my good customer service skills in that. And one of the things, though, I think it helped me was I have a good understanding of money and can manage large budgets. I worked at the Library at Illinois for 6 years before becoming more sure that I wanted to be a librarian. So I was able to go to graduate school when my middle daughter started kindergarten. And I graduated, and they didn't really hire their own graduates. So that began my moving across the country with my family for positions with ever-increasing responsibility, from Ohio back to UIUC, then to Penn State, to Houston, and finally back to the Big Ten at the University of Minnesota. And I give you this background because there's pretty much no job in the library that I have not done or supervised. Libraries are, as our provost has said recently, the lifeblood of the university. And I think that's true. And I think you could also say the same thing for public libraries in their communities. The Twin Cities campus has 5 big libraries or hub libraries and 7 branch locations. Walter and Health Sciences libraries are located on the East Bank, Wilson and Anderson libraries on the West Bank, and McGraw and St. Paul are the biggest of the 5. The Art and Architecture, Math Library, Music Library, Natural Resources Library, and the Wangenstein are all libraries right here on the Twin Cities campus. And we also have, which Dick said was his favorite, and truth be told, it's mine too, the one out at the Anderson Horticulture Library at the University of Minnesota Arboretum. And if you've never been to that library, the next time you're at the Arboretum, stop in, check the hours first, but it is a true gem. And the George Yakishima furniture is just stunning. Our mission and our vision ground us in the work that we do for the university and in support of the university's strategic plan. We expand access to information, and we do this through our collections and making them accessible to all, either in person or via interlibrary loan. We strengthen research and teaching, and we do that in a variety of ways. We advise on managing data, establishing good practices with data, and we help researchers figure out where to store their data from their research and how to create data management plans, which grant applications need to have. And we offer workshops on computational tools, many of which are to graduate students and faculty. We power curiosity, discovery, and connection. And our vision and our mission are grounded in our values. We respect each person by striving to create spaces, services, and collections that make people feel welcome, included, and represented, reflecting our commitment to diversity and anti-racism. We support well-being and embody a shared culture of respect. We lead with expertise by striving to bring excellence and transparency to our work and share our knowledge to advance learning, exploration, and the common good. We're accountable by striving for equity and sustainability across the work of libraries to allow each of us to be responsible stewards of our resources and active participants in our community and in our world. We support the journey, and we picked this word really carefully because learning, research, it's all a journey. By striving to provide accessible, open, and shared resources and maintain integrity and trust in our collaborations to enable evidence-based innovation, individual growth, and organizational transformation. And together, we make the difference. This, some of you might recognize where this picture was taken. This picture is taken in Walter Library. Walter is having its 100th birthday, and in October, we're going to have a big celebration. And here's just some of our staff. We were able to get a great picture. We have close to 300 employees, about 82 of them are librarians. And we have a sizable student workforce of a little over 200. And I wanted to give you an idea of some of the breadth of what we do and the scale. This really is a testimony to the scale. We have more than 7.6 million volumes. We answer almost 20,000 research questions each year. We have lots of folks at our service desks. We have over 1 million visitors in our libraries. We send materials out. We make sure that we have a robust online system and have many books that are accessible online to everyone. And this is one of the things that I wanted to share with you a few things that we do that you might not think librarians would do. So for example, 2 of our librarians led the Evidence Synthesis Institute, which teaching librarians and researchers across the world to perform systematic reviews. And systematic reviews, they would explain this in much more depth than I, but what they are is really deeper and broader literature reviews with specific syntax designed to be extremely comprehensive. This institute is fully funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is called IMLS, and at no charge for the accepted applicants. This institute is aimed at library staff supporting evidence synthesis in topics outside of the health sciences. Librarians in the health sciences have been performing this work for quite a while, but not so much librarians in social sciences, the other sciences, or the humanities. What they do is they give an overview of systematic reviews and similar methodologies, guidelines and standards, search strategy development, software tools, quality assessment, and different services. Our librarians are scholars and authors. And here's just an example of some of the books that have been authored by library employees here at the U. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about our special collections, because our special collections truly are world class. I have to say, one of the reasons that I wanted to come here and be dean was because I knew of the reputation of our wonderful special collections and the people who make these collections available. Anderson Library is home to our rare books, archives, and special collections. We have collections ranging from children's literature to the history of computing, immigrant history, the LGBTQ archives. We have the Archie Givens archives in literature, and so many more. And we also have a Sherlock Holmes collection. Anderson Horticulture Library and the Minnesota Arboretum offer outreach services. One of the images included here is Story Time at AHL, which occurs every Thursday and the last Friday of the month. Story Time explores the vast catalog of children's books that celebrate nature, plants, and foster a love of reading. Also, there is Petals and Poetry, a display celebrating the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's first folio, delicate blooms and lush foliage that inspired his poetic imagery. Explore the enchanting plants and animals that inhabit Shakespeare's plays and echo the rhythms of his verse in their exhibit. This truly is a magnificent, magnificent library. We foster a lot of innovation and invest in tools to enhance the educational experience. Our health sciences VR studio is used to teach medical, nursing, and dental students about anatomy, patient care, and learning about compassion through programs such as Embodied Labs and Primal VR. Through Embodied Labs, and I've tried this myself, and it was a little scary because of the topic, and I hope it's not a portend to what might come, but it may be. And don't we want our students to be able to see what it's like for people who are either losing their hearing, or maybe unsteady, or might be having cognitive issues. Through Embodied Labs, a user can experience the frustration of aging with limited sight, mobility, and failing hearing. They can also explore a fully immersive, interactive, and engaging virtual environment for teaching and learning anatomy through Primal VR, or use the meditation applications in the VR studio. Students could also cross the hall to the makerspace where they can use 3D printers and other tools to model spine irregularities, tumors, or whatever they need. And I should say that the VR studio isn't just open to the folks in one of the health sciences colleges, but it's open to everyone across the university. So I wanted to give you a flavor of some of the work that our librarians are doing. Our staff is the most important asset of our library. As you can see from this list, the research and services we offer are not limited to reference work. We offer a wide range of services and embody skills that help both the student and the researchers. And I'm talking about librarians here, but it also, the librarians could not do their work without our fabulous staff. Librarians are staff here too. In some places, they are tenured faculty members. But here they're considered faculty-like, which is sometimes an ambiguous term. Folks across the libraries do a whole lot of different things. And then I want to talk a little bit about Minitex. Minitex is a state-funded library organization located here at the University of Minnesota. Its mission is to strengthen libraries, cultural institutions, and communities it serves. It connects libraries and individuals with information, ideas, and experiences to enrich lives and strengthen communities. It also, one of the services has to do with the Electronic Library of Minnesota. So any resident of Minnesota can use ELM, and there are many materials, both databases, and we have a whole bunch of nursing databases now, and books that you can read through ELM. It has a broad reach between education, digital licensing, and lending books and other part of the collections. So Minitex began in 1967 as a partnership between the University of Minnesota and the Office of Higher Education, with the purpose of sharing the collection of the University of Minnesota with the rest of the state. So if you ask for a book at your public library that's located in another library, Minitex is probably the group that gets it to you. And they're based here in the basement of Wilson Library. I should say, I am also based in Wilson Library. So the University of Minnesota is a member of multiple professional organizations. The Association of Research Libraries is a nonprofit membership association of the about 127 largest libraries in North America. One of the divisions of the American Library Association is the Association of College and Research Libraries. It published our framework for information literacy, and our librarians and our staff work with classes and incorporate these 6 frames into activities and assignments. And the framework has to do with things like how authority is constructed and how it's contextual. The process of information creation, the value of information creation, scholarship as conversation, and searching as a strategic exploration. The American Library Association, which seems to be in the news a lot, is a service organization that promotes librarianship of all types: school librarians, school libraries, public libraries, government libraries, academic libraries, and there are 65 members of ALA Strong, of which I am one. The mission of the American Library Association says that the purpose is the object of the American Library Association shall be to promote library service and librarianship for the development, promotion, and improvement of library and information services and the profession of librarianship in order to enhance learning and to ensure access to information for all. So the American Library Association's governed, or its tenants, these are the library's Bill of Rights. And it affirms that all libraries are forums for information and ideas, and that the following basic policies should guide their services. And I'm not gonna read all these, but I'm gonna give you a minute to look at them. Well, maybe I will read them. Books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people of the community and the library it serves. Materials should not be excluded because of the origin, background, or views of those contributing to their creation. Libraries should provide material and information presenting all points of view on historical and current issues, should not be proscribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal approval. Libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. Libraries should cooperate with all persons and groups concerned with resisting abridgment of free expression and free access to ideas. And a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views. Exhibit space should be, and in this, they're talking a lot about public libraries here, should be made available to the public on an equitable basis, and all people, regardless of origin, age, background, or views, possess a right to privacy and confidentiality in their library use. Libraries should advocate for, educate about, and protect people's privacy, safeguarding all library use data, including personally identifiable information. This last one is very, very important to us. We do not keep information that can tie a user to a book. We know how many books we check out in a year, but we don't keep the information that says who checks out. I wanted to just talk a little bit. So you can see I've gone from talking about me to talking about our libraries to talking about kind of the wider world in which we're living. And this is what intellectual freedom is. It gives people the right to think for themselves, to form their own ideas and opinions by questioning the world around us. Everyone has the right to access information from all points of view, in all formats, and without restriction. Privacy is required for true intellectual freedom, and protection of this freedom assures everyone's right to form their own ideas and their own opinions. limiting or removing access to words or ideas. That's what censorship is. And so I wanted to talk a little bit now about censorship and book banning. So as you can see from this slide, there has been a marked increase in the number of titles that have been challenged in the United States over the last 25 years. It is it's pretty astounding, a 92% increase over the previous year, just in the last year. New numbers released, these were released in March of 2024, show efforts to censor 4,240 unique book titles in schools and libraries. Titles represent the voices and lived experiences of LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC individuals, made up 47% of those targeted censorship attempts. In response to the surge of book challenges and efforts to restrict information, the American Library Association has launched Unite Against Book Bans. Unlike the past challenges, today's include efforts to remove entire swaths of titles by funded groups such as Moms for Liberty and others. So these are titles that are challenged. This gives you an idea of ones that are have been challenged in the public schools. In 2023, there were 22 attempts to restrict access to 45 unique titles in Minnesota. And compared to many states, that's really low, but still troubling. Here's an idea of what the 10 most frequently challenged books are. The first one is Gender Queer, a memoir by Maya Kobabe. The number of challenges, 106, and it was challenged for LGBTQIA content claimed to be sexually explicit. All Boys Aren't Blue by George Johnson. It also was challenged for LGBTQIA content and claimed to be sexually explicit. Many of these, pretty much all of them, had to do with LGBTQIA materials, sexually explicit materials, EDI content, or other actionable things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the effects on educators and librarians. And I'm going to talk a minute about folks from my library. So McKnight Prejudice identifies the maps and racial covenants clauses that were inserted into property deeds to keep people who are not white from buying or occupying homes. From their base, I'm so excited about that. They are based here in the University of Minnesota Libraries. Their interdisciplinary team collaborates with community members to expose the history of structural racism and support the work of reparations. Mapping Prejudice began in 2016 as an experiment. The team wondered whether a new awareness of racial covenants could help people see what Ibram Kendi calls the racism behind those racial disparities. They drew on the tools of digital humanities and tenets of public history to develop a methodology that mobilized community members to read historical property deeds and to transcribe the information necessary to locate racial restrictions on a digital map. The resulting maps have helped to change popular understandings of structural racism in Minnesota. The data set has opened new avenues for researchers seeking to document the harm brought by racist policies. This work was born of a community need in Minnesota, which has some of the largest racial disparities in the nation. These inequities are mostly pronounced in the area, they're most pronounced in the area of housing, which is foundational to health and well-being. The Twin Cities has the highest gap between Black and white home ownership rates for any major metropolitan area in the country. While 78% of white families own homes in the Twin Cities, only 25% of Black families are homeowners. And after the murder of George Floyd in 2020, Mapping Prejudice found itself at the epicenter of a global movement for racial justice as people from around the world tried to understand why this started in Minnesota. We have a lot of library guides on our website that you can easily access. And one of them is conducting research through an anti-racism lens. This guide was developed in response to librarians fielding multiple requests from U of M, University of Minnesota researchers looking to incorporate anti-racism into their research practices. Conducting research through an anti-racism lens is a long-term and ongoing process and must be considered part of a complex system. Many departments across the university, historically and currently, practice anti-racist research by centering non-white identities and perspectives. They explore diverse methodologies, and yet some disciplines and researchers are just beginning. And if you're new to this work, folks can consult this research guide. It shares racist research systems and practices, followed by resources for mitigating those problematic systems. And many librarians already stand with people at the margins. In some cases, they act as stand-in social workers. Besides uncivil behavior, these proposed bans cause stress and cause many to leave the profession. Many are harassed online or in person because they've stood up for people's right to read. And a lot of this is happening in our public libraries. The news is littered with stories of librarians who have been fired for pushing back against book bans. In Wyoming, in Gillette, Wyoming, a former library director lost their job of 27 years because she suggested books for Pride Month. This led to months of complaints. 2 librarians were fired in Kansas after putting up a rainbow display to celebrate neurodiversity and autism awareness, and accused of having an LGBTQ agenda. There have been librarians who have been fired in Colorado, and some even face criminal prosecution. In Arkansas, school and public librarians, as well as teachers, can be imprisoned for up to 6 years or fined $10,000 if they distribute obscene or harmful texts. Idaho, Arkansas, Indiana, all of these enacted laws mandating fines, imprisonment, or both. So, you know, every talk on this should contain, I think, a call to action. Because I know many of you are wondering, so what can I do? Well, use your libraries as you are, and your public libraries as well. Join a library board, or attend a school board, or library board meetings. If you hear of a challenge at your local library, support your local librarian and free and open access to library materials by contacting the Office for Intellectual Freedom. The Office of Intellectual Freedom estimates that it learns of only 3 to 18% of book challenges. Find out if your library's policy for reviewing challenge materials, find out what it is. Stay updated about intellectual freedom by signing up for free intellectual freedom news or reading the Journal for Intellectual Freedom and Privacy. Attend a banned book weeks program. Libraries, schools, bookstores, and literary communities are celebrating the freedom to read across the world. Participate in the Stand for Banned Books virtual readout. And write a letter to a favorite banned or challenged author. Take some time to thank them. So this, I hope, gives you an idea of what libraries are facing. We are so fortunate at the University of Minnesota. We have a world-class library with world-class staff, and we serve world-class students and teachers, researchers, and we have a pretty robust programs of community engagement. We just co-hosted a program at the Science Museum. We participate in History Day and many different activities, and have partnerships throughout the state of Minnesota and the country. And I hope you've enjoyed today. And I see that there's lots of questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and close, and I'm going to say thank you so much for supporting your libraries. Thank you so much for supporting the University of Minnesota libraries. And if you want to learn more, I think you can go to lib.umn.edu. I think that's our web address, and you can take a look at all those wonderful research guides that we have available for folks. All right, well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Lisa.
There we
That's
go.
wonderful. I'm wondering if you could repeat the web address for people to access the libraries.
Sure, I'm going to make sure I get it right.
Okay.
lib.umn.edu, and I'm going to test and make sure. I do it all the time without thinking, and it just, yep. It
So
just
that's
goes right in.
LIB as in boy.
LIB as in boy .umn.edu.
Fantastic. We have a lot of questions about what sort of resources are available to the public from the university libraries. Is it everything? Can the public access everything in every library? Is it all online? Do we have to go in person?
Yes, no, yes, no. A lot of answers. So one thing, if there's something from our collection that interests you, you can go to your public library and ask that it be sent to you via interlibrary loan. That's one thing. Many resources are available online through Minitex's Electronic Library of Minnesota, and that's open to all citizens of Minnesota. So I'm going to I'm going to go there too, and so I can get that URL for you as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's two. If you go to MINITEX, which is minitex.umn.edu, that will bring you up on the Minitex homepage, and you can see eBooks Minnesota and eLibrary Minnesota. And those material, pretty much everything here is available to everyone in the state of Minnesota.
And how does ELM differ from lib.umn.edu?
So this is Minitex's, this is our big outreach portal.
Okay.
lib.umn.edu is much more facing for our campus. So that's where our students go if they want to access materials. All materials, all our online materials are not available to everybody because of our license agreements, which is why ELM and eBooks Minnesota is such a wonderful resource. And I can give you, can I share my screen one more time?
Absolutely.
So can everyone see that?
Yes.
So this is what ELM looks like. So this is Minitex's homepage.
Okay.
You can also ask MN, which is our chat service, and it's manned by librarians across this across the country 24/7. So you will get an answer. It also has eBooks Minnesota, eLibrary Minnesota, the Minnesota Digital Library, resources especially for K through 12. This is a wonderful resource, and we are so proud.
So maybe a better question would have been, what is not accessible online to the general public?
So the library subscribes to many databases and electronic journals, and those are only by contract available to the students, staff, and faculty of the University of Minnesota. So our research guides are available. All of the resources via Minitex are available. And if you want to join the Friends of the Libraries, then you can check out books from our collections.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I should also say that any member of the public can come in and use our electronic resources. They just can't use them remotely.
Okay, understood. Well, that's exciting still. All right, we do have someone in our queue who says she has worked at the University of Illinois, at Chicago, Rare Books and Manuscript section at the Carl Sandburg Collection, and she would like to investigate the U of M Sandburg holdings. And how would she go about that?
I suggest that she writes to our head of special collections, Chris Kiesling, and she will be able to help you.
All right. There's so much available. It's hard to
It's
get my
mind-boggling, isn't it?
Around it. Yes, exactly. Okay, back to the.
Can I say one thing? To our participant who worked at UIC, that's where my daughter got her bachelor's degree. So we spent a lot of time at the University of Illinois at Chicago.
Oh, wow. Okay. How does the rise of ebooks affect your budget?
Well, I will tell you that 85% of our budget now is spent on electronic resources in one form or another. And that is common for libraries across the world. People want materials digitally, and we are committed to giving it to them. If I had to wager a guess, and look into the future, I think ultimately, I think our print collections will be mostly centered in our special collections. There are still materials that we buy in paper because we're not able to get them electronically. So a lot of materials from the Global South are only available in paper. Some art materials are only available in paper, art journals. And there are some books that are just, you just want them in paper. So thinking about beautiful, I think about art books or all the music scores that we buy. We buy a lot of music materials, and those are all in paper as well. So there's a lot of, we still buy paper, but we buy a lot of electronic books. And now we have a Libby subscription too. So that is proven to be pretty popular for our students and our staff. We don't have a very big Libby collection yet. I would highly suggest Hennepin County or Ramsey County for Libby, but it's great. It's interesting. Can I digress a minute?
You can, yes.
If you all are like me, you probably read books in a variety of different ways. So I read paper books. I listen to books. I'm listening to a book on Audible in my car now. And I have a Kindle and I read electronically. I feel like we read in all sorts of formats now.
True. We have so many options.
We have so many options.
We do have a group of listeners who are at a retirement community. I think they're probably in a large room listening. And one of the things that they asked was if there's a central phone number for people to contact the American Library Association. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they should probably go to that website and find
www.ala.org.
Okay.
They
may not have.
Yeah, I can look around and see if there's a phone number.
They may not have access to the internet as much as we do, perhaps, but I just wanted to make sure I asked their question.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really,
I'm not even sure there are people who answer the phones anymore.
I can tell you I have gotten less than 5 phone calls from on my phone since I've worked here.
Wow.
Now I get work calls on my cell phone, but I really, just don't get phone calls.
Well, your student population is probably pretty savvy with their online querying.
I think they're pretty savvy, and a lot of times they will go through our chat function.
Yes. Okay. How do you make decisions on what to add to your collections?
That's a great question. We have many library employees who make those collections decisions. So we have expertise in all different subjects. So everything from medicine to dentistry to architecture to design to German and French to music. They make those kinds of decisions, and yep, that's how we do it. Sometimes we also have a profile with a publisher, where we might say we want all books from the University of Oxford University Press, or we want all materials from Cambridge University Press. And anymore now we get those books online. So it's a combination. We also an ever increasing number of materials. Faculty and students want video. So we have a lot of video in our collection that's available for professors and instructors to use in their classes.
Can you expand on that? I'm thinking, YouTube is so ubiquitous. What kind of videos are you talking about?
So they might be documentaries.
Oh,
They
okay.
might be how to perform a surgery. They might be, I mean, all different kinds. I can tell you kind of funny story, not really. But someone close to me was diagnosed with an aneurysm, and they were able to watch aneurysm surgery. I would not recommend that for anybody, but there's a lot of material out there that is not on YouTube, that are probably more scholarly in nature, and those kinds of things we make available.
One of our listeners, Brooke, has actually posted the American Library Association number. So thank you, Brooke. It is 1-800-545-2433. And there's probably someone scrambling to get a pen and a piece of paper. So I'm going to say it again. Maybe somebody in the room can memorize the first three numbers and somebody can take the last four. 1-800-545-2433. Thank you very much, Brooke. Okay, in light of librarians leaving the profession, are you aware of anything that ALA or other library organizations are doing to attract people into the profession?
So we have the Association for Research Libraries has a program for people from underrepresented groups to apply and to see whether or not this gives them experience while they're in school. So they get to meet people, hear about different areas of librarianship, and that is one way. There are also lots of scholarships available for students that are interested in graduate school and library science. We don't have a program here at the U. There used to be a program here, but it was the School of Library Science was closed back in the 1980s. But St. Kate's has a library program. So I can't tell you exactly how many, but there are several across the country, and in the Midwest. UW, Madison and Milwaukee, I believe, both have library schools.
Is this a field where if you want a job, there are many to be had for the taking, or is it difficult to find a job for a new grad?
Oh, Laura, it really ebbs and flows. I think there are many jobs out there right now. And you don't necessarily have to have a master's degree in library science. We have many people who work here who have bachelor's degrees. We have people who work here who have PhDs. The library world's a big tent. And I tell my staff all the time that it really takes all of us working together to deliver services, really, no matter what your job is. So whether you are scanning articles to send out to students and faculty, whether you are reshelving materials, whether you're working on our website, you're buying our materials or cataloging them, or you're working directly with our students and faculty. All of those jobs, every single job is important in libraries.
Do you have spots for volunteers?
We do have volunteers. Most of our volunteers are centered in special collections. So that would be, those would be, that's where I would go if I had a question. Yep.
Are those kind of things posted, or how do you find them?
Not generally. We don't have a lot of volunteers,
Okay.
but we do have some.
All right. We do have a listener who has a great question here. If you know, why are books held to a higher degree of scrutiny by certain groups than movies, the internet, and television? I,
I really can't answer that. I don't know. I think maybe it's because that in public libraries, it's accessible. Has to do probably maybe with accessibility. It's much harder to go to a movie. You have to pay. It's not free. There might be transportation issues. So I think the accessibility of books is probably one of the big reasons.
okay. Are there fewer students physically visiting I guess, the university libraries? And if so, is that a concern or not?
I think there are. Um, it really varies on our campus. So for example, Walter Library, which is the big library on the mall, has more attendance now than it did before the pandemic. Wilson Library, which is on the West Bank, has less. So it really varies from place to place. And McGraw over in St. Paul is pretty steady. But I think the pandemic had such a big impact, not only on the way, I mean, it just had an impact all over. But it had a big impact on libraries too. And the way that we showed that we could deliver services electronically. So we do a lot of Zoom meetings, we do a lot of Zoom teaching, we do teaching in person. Librarians are really not, I wouldn't say not me, but our librarians and the rest of our staff are really very adept with technology. So they were able to help folks transition, help our faculty transition during the pandemic. But I think that's had an impact on the physical use. Now, I will say that the use of our electronic resources just keeps going up, up, up. And the amount of consultations that our staff are doing with the amount of teaching that they're doing is going up too. So I think it's really shifted. But yet we still have over 1 million people in our libraries each year. So it's pretty robust.
Do you envision a day when a physical library just won't exist?
No,
No.
I really don't. I think our footprint's changing. So when you think about, I think about Walter. Walter's a great example. It's going to be 100 years old. But in the basement of Walter, there's a makerspace that the students named the toaster. I did not know that the Pop-Ups toaster was invented here in Minnesota, but it was. Little tidbit of information for the day. And we have a maker space, we have group study rooms, we have places for people to go, and if you have to do a professional level recording, video recording, they can go there. So that and you can find quiet study spaces. So it's a matter of libraries being adaptive and providing really services and spaces that are either the public would like, if in the case of a public library, or our students will like.
Mhm. I know that at my local Hennepin County Public Library, there's really nobody in the stacks with the computers are all in use, and there's a long waiting list to get on them. And I just think it's a curious switch from what I used to see when I was little, which was ages ago. But yep, things are changing. All right,
Things are changing.
things are changing. So we do have someone who is saying, I'm a veteran of broadcasting in the Twin Cities and have done a lot of recording of textbooks for educational publishers. This person is interested in knowing how they can work with U of M libraries to help create more accessible material that's available to students and other users who might be visually handicapped or disabled in other ways that make it hard to hold a traditional physical book.
So so we don't do that kind of work here in the libraries, but we go through disability services on campus. So that would be the group that I would get in contact with.
Disability services.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. And how involved are the university faculty in suggesting materials to add to your libraries?
All of our faculty are welcome to get in touch with their librarian and suggest selections for the libraries.
And does that then get funneled to the person you mentioned earlier, kind of the content specialist who puts it on a long list of things to consider, and then it gets
No, typically the person who typically the librarian who's responsible, so the librarian who's responsible for English is saying this is what I want you to order. So the librarians working with the faculty, we don't get the amount of faculty suggestions will vary from discipline to discipline.
Okay. What do you do with your old books that you're taking out of circulation? Where do those go?
So well, we don't take very many out of circulation, but what we do, the university really does believe in stewardship, and we are often the library of last resort. We certainly are the only academic research library in the state of Minnesota. So we have a collections facility that is being built right now that's over on Como Avenue. It'll have the capacity to hold 3 million volumes. And working with our partners in the Big Ten, we are trying to create this big collection, which is all the Big Ten libraries collections, trying to think about it as one. So many materials will go over to the collections facility. So that one of the reasons is so that we can move all the archives and special collections from where they're stored to move them all nearer to the curators who work with them. So that's slated to be finished in December, and then some of the moves will start for our little used materials.
You said that the University of Minnesota Libraries is did you say the only academic research library in Minnesota? In the state? And what do you mean by academic research? Because I'm thinking, St. Thomas, McAllister, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So those are wonderful libraries, and they're considered college libraries. But in terms of like we're a research 1 level, which is the highest research level that a university can be. We are the only R1 level research library in the state of Minnesota. Now, the other research library, of course, is the Minneapolis Historical Society, has a huge research collection, but they are also, but they're a public. Yes, not academic.
That's interesting. All right, we do have a listener who is asking, I may need to get her to clarify the question, but I'll throw it out there. She asks, are there ongoing sessions for discussions in the future scheduled, and where do we find the schedule? So I'm not too clear on the discussions. I'm hoping that you are. I'm throwing it back to you. But if not, we will go on and I can ask the listener to expand on that. Do you have an idea what she's speaking of?
No, I wonder if there are more discussions about libraries. Or maybe it's OLLI discussions. I don't know.
We'll see if she can clarify, and then I'd be happy to ask the question again. And we have a listener who also just made a comment, which I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. He says one of the recent tragedies of K-12 is replacement of media specialists with non-certified educational assistants, or in some districts, volunteers, which is an fairly invisible move to the public. And do you have any comment about that?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the real tragedies of all the budget cuts that have happened in the schools, is that loss of media specialists, that loss of librarians in those schools. Now, the state of Minnesota just appropriated money in the last legislative session for school media specialists, but I don't want to say that's rare, but we're hearing about this all over the country. And it really is a shame because those folks can engender a love of reading in children. And if they're not there, that it makes it really hard. Teachers aren't necessarily, I mean, they are super busy. Certified media specialists, they're a fabulous group. And so I agree. It is really sad. But I would also say thank you to the volunteers who are trying to help plug the hole.
All right, thank you. We have a question about the chart that you showed, questions to positive things and negative things. So I don't know if we need to go back to that, but is there a link to that chart that our listeners can access? And is there a way to do more to promote that chart?
Give me a minute because I took down all my slides. Back to my slides. Give me a sec. Yep. There, let's see. There we go.
I think the listener was
I'm
also.
going to go ahead and share. Can I do
yeah.
that?
I think the listener was also interested on whether any of those addressed the BIPOC population. So what I'm seeing right now is your Gmail.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that.
Not that that isn't interesting, but
I'm going to stop sharing a minute. Whoops. What I would suggest that folks do is go to I have a link again, the United Against Book Bans.org, and you'll be able to find that information.
United Against Book
Bans.org.
That's just all one word.
Yep. And what's 4 words, but the URL is 1.
Yeah.
And it will show you the chart shows, like, for example, if you hover over the map, it will show you the number of challenges in each of the states.
Oh, interesting. Yes, we had another question about that. That was a very intriguing.
Isn't it a kind of amazing slide?
We really seem to oscillate between those two poles, you know, everything's bad and let it all out there. And I don't know where we'll end up landing, but very interesting material. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And
I don't know where I'm sorry. I
no,
don't know where we're gonna end up landing either, but I mean, we're seeing that play out. We see that play out in libraries. We see that play out everywhere. It's just the difficulty sometimes of having a conversation with folks who have different viewpoints than you do.
Yeah. And someone, same person who gave us the 1-800 number, thank you again, Brooke, says that you can access a radio talking book where if you're looking for ways to help the visually impaired with books, State Services for the Blind, parentheses MNDEED, and or Minnesota Public Radio and American Public Radio, that those also might be outlets that might be looking for people who have the talents that this listener.
Thank you, Brooke.
Yes, Brooke, she's being a great librarian, isn't she?
She is being a great librarian. And this is what librarian, I mean, this is what they do all the time.
Yeah.
They are just, I mean, I can't tell you how many librarians are puzzlers because I mean, their whole job, well, all of our staff, their whole job is, it's all about puzzles. You know, people ask questions, they have to figure out first of all, they have to figure out what the question is. And then they go out and find the answer, or if they don't know the answer, they point you to somebody who can.
Yes.
They really are just sort of super people.
I think I have also had great admiration for librarians in the past who've helped me define search terms so that electronically I can access the information I'm looking for, especially when it comes to medical journals or, you know, PubMed, things that have what I think of as a little complicated search term, the mesh terms and all of that I struggle with sometimes. So librarians have been great at that, as well as helping that third grade class find information on snails. You know, it's just soup to nuts for those reference librarians.
That was one of my, I didn't get to practice it that much because I was the acquisitions librarian. So I was the one who dealt with the money and bought stuff. But one of my favorite classes in graduate school was humanities and social science reference, because you got to learn about what a gazetteer is and all sorts of really, really cool stuff.
Okay, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to ask you to expand on it. If you could design the library of the future, I don't know how far in the future I'm talking, 20 to 25 years maybe, because the digital things, they move pretty quickly, and in 20 to 25 years, things will look a lot different. What would it look like? Would it all be computer terminals? Or what would it look like?
It would be vibrant. It would have spaces for all different kinds of learning. It might be playful. It would be a place for experimentation. We would have fabulous exhibits. The exhibit, especially, people are going to continue to love exhibits that focus on our special collections, no matter what kind of special collections they are. So, you know, I think about my colleagues. I work really closely with the libraries up in Duluth and Crookston, Morris, and Rochester. And, you know, one of the things and they are all super proud of the collections they have. And they have rare materials too. Like at Duluth, when you walk into the library, there's a Dale Chihuly sculpture hanging from the ceiling. I'd
Ooh.
like that in my library of in my library of the future. Um, our folks at Crookston are so they have a collection of journals all about sugar beets because sugar beets are a big crop in northwestern Minnesota.
Mhm.
Each of them have special collections. I would love to be able to showcase those. I'd also love, you know how sometimes in museums you have like tactical, you can touch things. I would love for that to be able to happen. And I would want people there. I would want people to help you, to answer questions, to work with you on whatever you were doing. Those are, and I would want spaces that were quiet spaces, were noisy spaces, were places where you could be alone, places where you could be with your friends or your coworkers. Um, I think we'll still want some sort of food in our libraries.
I was just going to say a coffee bar.
One of the things that's so hard during the summer is that in my library there, over on the West Bank, it's kind of a dearth of food options. You have to go off campus, and then there's some really nice places to eat. But it's those are some of the kind of things that I'd like in my library of the future.
What sounds delightful. Is the U taking any steps to begin transitioning into more of a model? Is there a budget for that? How does that go?
Uh, no,
No.
and no budget, and yes, we are transitioning. So I talked a little bit about the toaster that's down in the basement of Walter, which you have these beautiful, look like the rooms in Harry Potter, the upstairs, and then downstairs you have this vibrant maker space. The health sciences library is it really doesn't have many books except for reference books, print books.
Mhm.
Um, but it has a VR studio. It has a makerspace. It has a classroom. It has rooms for consultation so that you can talk to a librarian. So it really and it opened up during COVID. So we're still trying to assess that space. And then thinking about the West Bank, well, not the West Bank, but in St. Paul, how can we collaborate maybe with student affairs to create a vibrant student center that has a library too in it? And would that be possible? So yes, we are doing those kinds of things. And if you go to our website, you will see a donate page. Because none of this happens without funding, and philanthropy is such an important part of um, us being able to do all those kinds of things that we really like to do.
It just really sounds like a wonderful model. I'm anxious to go there. It sounds great. All right, so last question of the day. I think we'll make this our last one um, because we're just going to run out of time. But this listener says that they recently retired after a wonderful career as a reference librarian and head of reference in large academic libraries. Smiley face.
Smiley face.
Smiley face. They're not burned out. With the national decline in in-person reference transactions since the development of the internet, what is your library's current model for providing reference services to students, faculty, and staff?
So all of our folks on each of our reference desks. So I'll talk about first physical, then virtual.
Okay.
So all the folks at the reference desks answer a whole bunch of questions. We also have the 24/7 chat service that I talked about. Many of our students will, I mean, there's always an Ask a Librarian. And so we have virtual services and we have services physically. None of our reference librarians don't sit on, we don't have reference desks per se.
Hmm.
But our staff are top notch. And we do answer a lot of questions virtually every single year. Before we go though, but can I give a shout out to all the folks who work not only in our libraries here in the Twin Cities, but my colleagues out at the campuses and just in general libraries around the country. You are warriors and you are awesome. And I just have such a high regard to for all of you and all the work that you do. And I'm very grateful to have this job that I have now.
Librarians are nice people. I've never
Yes, we're nice.
never run into a mean librarian. They're just always very kind people, anxious to help. Well, thank you so much for that. We are sadly out of time, but thank you, Professor German, for this.
Oh, just Lisa. I'm
Lisa, well,
yep.
Professor.
Not
Thank you to the audience. Your questions, as always, are great and stimulating. Thank you to the OLLI program, as well as our sponsors, AARP Minnesota and the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. I want to say a special thank you to Grayson Simmons for making sure that every time you click on that Zoom link, things work. Thank you to Steve Benson for finding and booking our speakers and coming up with this format, to Carmi Blyfus for keeping us organized, and to Kate Schaefers for her outstanding guidance and leadership of the OLLI program. This concludes the At the U series this year. Please join us next spring for another fascinating look at what faculty and staff at the U are working on. Thank you again. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.